Is a great self-reflection for leaders. And you are leaders. You are leaders, every single one of you. The reason I needed them to do it was because of my work. I'm not going to go through all of my work, but this was my research work. And there are a few pieces of it that I want to make sure that everyone kind of recognizes, because I went on a mission to figure out what was happening with educators of color. What I found out is that what's happening to educators of color is happening to educators in general. And what we need are leaders that see people, leaders that see individuals, leaders that do not see generalizations. And we need leaders that are able to reach people and reach individuals. And the greatest leaders that I've ever come across that can do that in a crisis and in relaxed state are you. You're the greatest ones that can do that. You're the ones that embody it. And it doesn't matter how many different leadership styles that come out of trend. The ones that work with the individual are the ones that make the longest impact. So I started out on a phenomenological study. I hate that word because I never get it out quickly. But I started out on a quest to see what was happening to professional educators of color in predominantly white districts. That was my thing at the moment. And I was wondering what's going on with them. Is this on? Is this working? Is this the right one? Oh, it is. Okay. Yep, it is. Okay. I just wasn't sure if I had the right clicker. So I was wondering what was going to happen with them. What's the workplace experience like? Now, granted, I'm just going to have full disclosure. I was sitting at home. I just had my son, and it was now in my dissertation writing phase, and it was 2020. So I was like, what's going on? What's happening in the world? What do we need to do in order to keep our teachers? That was my concern. What do we need to do to keep our teachers? What do we need to do to keep all of the role models that all of our students need to see and need to have happening? And so going through that, I came up with 2 research questions. You're free to read them, but that's not the focus of this closure. It's just to show you I did some real research, that's all. But I ended up with 7 participants. And what I want to do is talk to you about them, because that's what this is really about. And talking to them, and then talking to my other colleagues of the majority race, I said, I think I just heard something that was really familiar. And I just heard something else that was really familiar. Things were happening to people and was happening. It wasn't hitting the same, but it was affecting them. And that's what's important. We're being affected, and not in a good way. So I had Ashley, and Ashley had high credentials. Ashley actually had more credentials than people that she was around, and she would never be asked for the promotion. She would never be asked to be the teacher leader. She would never be asked to do anything, but she would always be the one to speak up and could articulate it very well. But no one ever allowed her to move up. She connected with her students. She would do things amazing. And then she told a story. She's like, I would have my students, give me stories about them, and I would use it, and I would put it on my door and everything. And it was so cool. And then my friend down the hall, she did the same thing, but the principal at the staff meeting talks about my friend doing it. She never mentioned that I'm the one who even started that trend. Or how students were allowed to transfer out of her class because her accent was too thick. Instead of us teaching our students how to adapt to someone else because they have knowledge that you need, like deep knowledge that you need, we just said, okay, yeah, someone's different. Yeah, go where you feel it's easier. That's what we did. And it hurt her. But nobody ever asked, does that even bother you? Does that even hurt you? It hurt her as a teacher. She said she was seeing Asian students lose their heritage trying to fit in. That hurt her because she had gone through that. And she had seen her own kids. And she would tell me about how I have noticed how I did it to my own kids because I didn't want them to feel what I felt. But now I feel bad because they don't have our language. And I was like, as at the time I was doing this, I was still a counselor. I was like, I don't think we've ever gotten that deep with our teachers to see what kind of things hurt them, what hurts them. I asked, well, why are you still here? For the kids. Isn't that what we all say? I'm in it for the kids. Courtney was kind of the same way, but Courtney had some things that I didn't realize were big deals to her. She relished in the fact that people asked her to do professional development. Like that was a big deal to her. And she felt so honored where other people were just like, oh, I guess I can lead it. She felt like that was the highest honor you could ever give her, was for her to be able to teach someone else what she does. She also mentioned that until she left her district, she didn't realize she could be a leader. Because even as an adult, she didn't think she could be a leader because she didn't see leaders that looked like her. I was like, but you're like 35. It just didn't dawn on her. And she didn't realize how much that didn't dawn on her until she went to a district where leaders looked like her. And it inspired her. Or she wanted to move up in her degree. And every time she would ask someone in her district about moving forward, what do you think? Do you think I should, get another degree? Or how was it for you when you got this degree? They would kind of just shrug her off like, oh, you don't want to do that. Oh, that's too much money. We just say things all the time, but we don't think about the impact that we're doing. Everyone needs SEL, even the adults. Everyone needs to be taken care of. We're all fragile, even the adults. Veronica, she was one of the people, she was always a go-getter, like education, technology, savvy. She would make things and then she would see those things taken. And other people try to steal them. She gave a quote for my dissertation, and I'll never forget it. She said, they want me to build the table, but they won't let me sit at it. And I was like, oh, I don't want you to build the table and not let you sit at it. And at this time, yes, these are people of color and there's a different tone to that. But at the same time, I was talking to other colleagues who were doing stellar things, who felt that they were also being overlooked. And in every capacity, I realized someone's building something and we won't let them partake. Someone is an expert in something. Someone has knowledge in something. Every person has knowledge of something. And we have to make sure that we're paying attention to them. Brenda had the highest level of resiliency I've ever heard. She came from another country. She was a top-notch pharmaceutical scientist in her other country and came to be a teacher here. And I was like, why aren't you teaching science? I don't know, but I stay because children need to recognize that they can be good in science. Girls need to know they can be good in science. I was like, do we know that you're good at science? Nope, no one knew. No one bothered to dig in deep enough. We just took all of these people for face value. And that is a harm that we do because we're moving so fast in education. We have Jake and Joshua and Benjamin, and all of these men all said that they were staying for the young men. They wanted young men to have role models. They wanted young men to see them. And they all knew, but I'm going to have to leave them if I want to move up. If I want to make bigger change, I'm going to have to leave them. And that was a struggle that they kind of like messed around with every year. Is this the year that I choose to move up in my career? Or is this the year I choose to stay because they need a role model? Being torn between those two things. Benjamin was one of the boldest people I've ever known. He said, in my interview, I asked the admin team that sat around me and interviewed me and said, can I move up? Will I have opportunity to grow? And I was like, I know every person at the table told you yes. He's like, yes, they did. I said, great. That's great. He's like, but I told them, I have never seen that happen here. So, well, but you got the job. So I was like, you got the job, But he was being honest, right? He was being honest, and it was a hard truth. And so that led me to look for something because I was like, you know what? As a leader and a future leader, I cannot sit here and just be okay with the fact that people are not being seen. I can't be okay with the fact that everybody thinks it's okay to overlook. There's got to be an answer, because all the leadership styles, all the leadership books, they tell you to do this or to do that, or go talk to them, or, you got to be sure to be firm, be assertive, be this, be that. And I was like, yeah, well, all of that doesn't seem to be fitting any of this. So I got led to Maslow's hierarchy of needs because I'm a counselor first. I'm a counselor first. And then secondly, servant leadership. Those don't go with a culture. They're beautiful. They don't go with a culture. They go with a person. They go with the individual. They don't go with, oh, you got to know all the things about this trend over here. You got to know all the things about that trend, because you know what? Cultures are blending. People are blending. People are more than one thing. They have so many beautiful intersectionalities of who they are. I need a leadership style that will be able to hold space for the whole individual. So I went to Maslow's and I went to servant leadership. And the reason I needed them to show you this thriving leader aspect was because if you don't self-reflect on where you are as a leader, how can you see someone else? How can you understand their struggle when they're having a hard time juggling all the things and you can't be real with yourself that you're having a hard time juggling all the things? That's what brings authenticity. And authenticity creates true relationship building. I don't know how many relationship building trainings, conferences, things we have, but are we building true relationships? Are we just doing the things that look like the surface? Because we're not going to get anywhere without that. So servant leadership offered for individual growth, collective growth, and deeper connections. Isn't that part of what we're supposed to do for SEL? Right? I need to grow. You need to grow. We need to grow, right? I need to recognize where I am, who I am, what are my boundaries. I need to recognize how that infringes upon you, how that affects you. I need to consider that. And then I need to see, where do we need to meet in the middle so that we're all better. That's important. And then we had asset-based theory, because everybody brings something to the table, and that's something we don't always recognize. But as a counselor, when you're sitting at that table and they are talking about the teachers and the students and they're going in, it is your job to help people see the person. The person. Because although they are failing over here, every person has an asset. I don't know what it is. Sometimes their asset is that they're on time. Every person has an asset, though. They have an asset. And if we can't see the asset, how can we say that we can help people grow? How can we say that? And so I love that asset-based theory came along, because it was no longer about social status. It was no longer about wealth. It was about all these other things. Like the fact that I have my bilingual children. And I said, you have the most wonderful asset in the world. They're like, what do you mean? I'm trying to learn English. They told me in Spanish. I'm like, but you know Spanish. And you will know English. And the fact that you can translate that, do you know how much brain power that is? Nobody talks to them like that. They just beamed up like, it's like, yeah, that's more than I can do. Or the fact that some of my children that are from the quote unquote hood come over here to this other side of town, and it became a derogatory term, code switching. But I was like, y'all understand. Anyone that can be one way here and another way over here, that is a powerful skill. That is something to be complimented. That is something to let children know you show a level of social intelligence that other people don't recognize. So it's important for us to see that you already hold the skills of leadership that most administrators shy away from. When it comes down to it, we look at leadership styles, servant leadership is low on the totem pole for people that want to turn around school. I'm just gonna be honest. It's low. But when it comes to the businesses that are most successful for the longest time, servant leadership is what those people are doing. You hold the key. So in Maslow's hierarchy of needs, this was for my actual research, Maslow's. At the time, I was looking at microaggressions and racism, and I found out two things. When you have a microaggression or you had racism that was happening, it was hitting two levels of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the esteem and belonging. Here's the deal. It doesn't have to have one account to hit both things. You could have someone just hit both things. It's not always about that. Our teachers, when they're not being productive, or counselors or principals or whoever, have a deficiency. They're missing something. And we have to dig deeper to find out what they're missing. We have to look and see what is it that they need. Do they need to belong? We talk about people belonging on our campus all the time. We talk about campus culture all the time, but do they really feel like they belong? And did you take enough time to find out how they feel like they belong? Just because I feel like I belong because we went to happy hour together doesn't mean that she's going to feel like she belongs because you invited her to happy hour. Everybody's different. Did we take the time to find this out? Did we take the time to figure out what they need for esteem? What is being recognized? What does it mean to feel like you hold high regard here on this campus? Is it that I leave you alone? Or is it that I ask you to do a PD? Because see, everybody is different. But everybody has the same needs. How they're expressed is different. But everyone has the same needs. And up here at Transcendence, this is where teachers live. They live at the top. Because see, most teachers all day long, it doesn't matter who you are, nationality, religion, whatever. If you are breathing and you came into that school, at the end of the day, you are going to probably give us this answer. I'm in it for the kids. You want to change someone's life. You don't want to change your life. You want to change someone else's life. That's the highest level. We will sacrifice everything to live at the highest level of this pyramid because we want to change their trajectory. We want to change the generations. We want to change society. We want to do all of those things. But y'all, does a pyramid stand on the top or the bottom? On the bottom. We owe it to ourselves and to our staff to ensure that we are helping them when they come in, day out to us. We are helping ensure that that bottom is whole. Now, I'll give you this. I did this presentation before, and I told them everybody's leaving right now because physiological needs are, well, they're a necessity. And if you aren't paying us, we're out. We got to have a house. We got to have food. We got to have those things. But when they're coming to you, you can help them do all the other things. So it was important for you all to see this and recognize this. All teachers, I know what my research was about, but what it led me to is to find out how to work with everybody. All teachers are leaving the profession at alarming rates. You just did a reflection. You see where you might be deficient. That might be where someone else is also deficient. We owe it to ourselves, our profession, and our kids to think about how does your campus consider making your staff whole? Do they consider making your staff whole? Do they consider the fact that for a good chunk of the day, probably anywhere from 8 to 12 hours out of the day, they're your family? They're not with their family. You're the family. And when they're with this family for this long, do we take pieces out of their pyramid? Or do we build up their pyramid? What do we do? And we can't ask the kids to do it because you know what the kids gonna do. They're gonna do whatever they need to do. That's not the kid's job. It's not the student's job to build the pyramid. As a leader, that is part of our job, is to consider how do we assist in building our staff, our campus. This is from the top to the bottom. How do we do it? What do we do? And this is not new. Maslow has been around forever and ever, right? He's not new. He's not new. And I think it's amazing that our needs still haven't changed. Technology, anything, everything. I still need love. I still want to feel like I fit in. I still want to belong. I still want somebody to say, oh my gosh, you were great. I still want all those things. So do you. Don't kid yourself. So do you. Because we're human beings and we need it. So as you leave here today, I hope that you had amazing information. I really do. But I hope you take the charge. I didn't mean for you to leave here feeling all great. I want you to leave here feeling all urgently fired up. Fired up because we have a charge to do. We have to ensure that we are meeting the deficiencies. We have to ensure that we are building the foundations, that we are doing all that we can to help people who don't know what we know understand what we know and understand why it is important. That is key. So, teachers are motivated to grow when their needs are met. I do have this up here. If you have any questions, you're free to ask questions. Otherwise, I'd love feedback. I like feedback. Y'all are like my first gig. No, but I do love feedback. I love to know, what did you take from this? Because it helps me. I got to grow too, or y'all, right? I got to grow too. But I do open the floor for any questions that you might have, and then I'm going to turn it over to Jenny.
Everything. I'm fearless in writing down things myself. Please, as you're still processing so many wonderful things, do give Dr. Johnson some feedback. Let her know we've heard amazing things, amazing speakers today in all of our sessions. We want to be sure that if you have, and this is a good practice too, because gratitude is a part of wellness, is to say that, or to send that, or share that. Even if you just have contact information from one of the presenters today, send them something that lets them know, because everybody that came here today has volunteered and given us their time, their expertise, the wonderful things that we have. So I'm gonna leave this up here for just a second. And are there questions for Dr. Johnson?
Do you want to go back to your Canva?
Yeah, okay. I got that. Okay. Here's the good news. In our weekly documents, I did say a while ago, presenters have been emailing me and sending me PDF versions of their slides and other resources. So what started out for us today as just a handful of things in our, in our Bitly doc, we have now, I'm just going to show you how much it's grown. Woo! Lots and lots of things that you can go to. Excuse me,